AI has the power to automate. But if it's using untrusted data, can you trust the results? Your business doesn't just need AI, it needs the right AI for your business. Introducing Watson X, a platform designed to multiply output by tailoring AI to your needs. When you Watson X your business, you can train, tune, and deploy AI, all with your trusted data. Let's create the right AI for your business with Watson X. IBM, let's create.
Look here. Ow! Listen. I wonder, do you understand what I'm talking about? I'm not talking about burning down a building.
How am I affiliated? I'm one of the early members of BDPA. I joined the organization in 1976, with it being the Philadelphia chapter. And as I say in my book, the only chapter that was available at that time. I have a good friend who, he and I served in the military, and we were stationed in Germany together. And so we've known each other for a very long time. And at that time, I was living in Baltimore and had actually moved into the general DC area, and he was involved in marketing for Diebold Corporation. So doing his job, he met Earl Pace up in Philly. And so when he and I were talking, his name is Wilbur McReynolds, and when Mac and I were talking, he said, hey, you got to meet this guy named Earl Pace, because he's starting an organization with African Americans in computers. And since you're doing computers, involved in computers, I think you ought to meet this guy. So after a couple months, time went by, we were finally able to make that connection. And it was really weird only because I had met Earl prior to actually meeting him in Philly. And when I met him, I was presenting doing a business presentation in the Baltimore area, and I was checking into the hotel for setup for the room. And I passed this guy coming in and out of the doorway because I was taking stuff from my car into the presentation room. And he was bringing in his material because he had a business meeting. And so we passed each other, and you know, like two brothers do. We say, hey man, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? And they just walked past each other. But I do remember him simply because of his presence and the way that he carried himself. And mentally I was thinking, that's a really sharp brother. So, and then later on I found out when I went to Philadelphia with my buddy Mac, and he did the introduction, it was Earl Pace that I had met. And so we started talking. And so we realized that we're both in computers and so forth. And that's how I was introduced to Earl Pace initially. Then they asked me to become a speaker at one of the early program meetings that the Philadelphia chapter was presenting. And I came, I spoke about security, computer security as related to banking systems. And that they were impressed with that presentation, but I was more impressed with them as the members of this new organization that they call Black Data Processing Associates. And so very shortly after that, I became a member, I joined, and that's how I joined the Philadelphia chapter. Attending some of the meetings in Philadelphia, they were the local chapter meetings, and we had not started conferences yet. So like I said, I was impressed with the mission of the organization, the members that were there. So I was so impressed that I started and founded the Washington, D.C. chapter. So I'm the founder of the Washington, D.C. chapter. And that actually started the expansion, and we were bold enough to say that we're ready to go and become a national organization. There were just two at that time. And so between Wilbur McReynolds and myself, Earl Pace and Ralph Gordon in Philadelphia, we would exchange weekends traveling up and down I-95. Mac and I would go to Philly, Earl and Ralph would come to DC. Next week, Mac and I to Philly, back and forth. We did that for a couple months because we were working on the outline for a national organization. So we would spend the weekend, going over some ideas, taking notes, drafts, talking about, what would the national structure look like? What would the bylaws contain? All of the necessary items if you're going to put together an organization. Because first you got to have the basics according to Robert's Rules of Order. You got to have the basics, such as obviously president, vice president, but then you want to have the treasurer, and then the two secretaries, recording secretary, and the your blank recording secretary and the other corresponding secretary. That's what it is. And so with those 5 offices being filled, you're now in a position to start bringing in members and running an organization. So that's how we started the national expansion. So now when I retired from the military in 1979, I returned to Cleveland, Ohio, which is where I'm from. And when I got back to Cleveland, because that's where my connections were, and I knew that coming out of the military, I had a better opportunity to connect with the people I grew up with, and then work in corporate America. So with that being done, I started the Cleveland chapter. So I actually founded 2 chapters for BDPA, the Washington, D.C. chapter and the Cleveland, Ohio chapter. And that's kind of how that national got started. And then from there, I was promoting other chapters into BDPA. How was I getting these people together? It was by phone, because remember then we didn't have internet and online, and everything we have today did not exist yet. So it was a lot of telephone work as well as physical travel. Like not that far from Cleveland to Detroit, and not that far from Cleveland to Chicago. And so just travel and being on the phone was the primary ways of connecting with folks and telling them about BDPA. At that time, a lot of work was done by paper. In other words, you printed up what you wanted, and I would say, I'll send you a packet. And in the packet included basic forms for a chapter to become a member. So local needed 5 people locally. They would sign the necessary paperwork to say, we want to be affiliated with the then new national BDPA. And we would be either Detroit chapter, Chicago, New Jersey, New Orleans. They just started popping once the news got out that we existed. And part of that news was through a magazine called Computer World. And Computer World at that time was the primary print medium for what was going on in the field of then called data processing. Now we refer to it as information technology, or IT. So whenever there was a meeting, we would invite Computer World reporters to attend. They would cover the meeting. There would then be an article in Computer World, and the word would get out that way. People would read it and say, whoa, there's an organization. How do I join? Contact, blah, 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 phone number, and so forth. So that's pretty much how the networking began at that time. And now I'm referring to the early 1980s. When I say that time, early 1980s.
South Beach, bringing the heat.
Can y'all feel that? Can y'all feel that? Jig it out.
The change of IT and the role that BDPA has played in that change has been terrific, because along the way we were able to start bringing in students. And as we started bringing in young people and having them go through a curriculum that Dr. Jesse Bemley had put together for teaching young folks about computers. That was our initial high school computer competition format. It was what Dr. Jesse Bemley put together. And once that started, the word would then get out through school systems and just word of mouth through those existing members. We wanted to target students or parents, or I should say, and parents, and local organizations within the areas we had chapters, soliciting for students who would be interested in participating in this new thing then called computer technology. Learning about computers. The initial mission was it's a three-part, to bring talent together for the purpose of sharing that talent, IT talent, and for the purpose of helping us just get better as professionals in the field. That was the first part of the mission. Then we would, the second part was to then take that information and talent and bring it to a level where we were sharing it with the community. So meaning that we were having educational programs, educational meetings to let people know about computers, what's going on in the field, what's a job opportunity for yourself. And then the third part was then to address technology as related to moving up in different levels, instead of just being maybe your initial programmers. At that time, it was programming, systems analysis. The data entry was big at that time. So how would you want to move from the entry level or early level positions into higher levels of management? So that in essence is the core of the mission of the early days of BDPA. But if you look at the mission as it's read then and what we're doing today, it's really the same, except some of the terminology has changed. But what we're doing, we're still working with students, very much so. We're still meeting and having workshops for people who are already in and want to increase their skill sets. We're still doing that. And as it relates to the community, we're still doing activities in the community, and much of it's now online, but back then, so we're still doing the same things that we were doing then. The legacy that I see for BDPA is that one of where, number one, it continues to grow. We have our 50th year anniversary coming up in 2025. So some planning is being done, some ideas presented for how to celebrate that 50-year anniversary, which will be kind of like a kickoff of the second 50 years. And that leads into the legacy kind of thought process. But right now, for me personally, I want to see BDPA expand. At one time, we were in almost every major city in the United States. We had a chapter of BDPA. Well, as a result of COVID and some economic downturns like recessions and so forth, that has caused some cutback or move back in participation. But that's cyclical, and we'll eventually get back to that. But long-term legacy that I see is for BDPA to be a global organization with participating organizations in other countries, as well as not only in cities in the U.S., but in other countries around the world. We have had speakers at our conference from Great Britain. There's an organization in Great Britain similar to BDPA, and they are addressing computer technology for their Black communities. And so they're doing work in Great Britain as well as other countries in Europe. That has the potential to, joining with them, that has a potential to really spread. The other part of that legacy is relates to a trip that a good friend of mine, Dr. Ademola Solaru, to shorten the first name, we call him Demo just for short, Demo Solaru. He and I went to Tanzania, Africa, for an economic summit, and we went as delegates representing BDPA. And this was in 2008. At that summit, there were dignitaries from all over the world because they came there for economic development in Africa. So we were there to represent and present BDPA. What blew us away in terms of excitement was everyone, especially the youth, were very excited about what we had to offer and what we were presenting in terms of an organization that looked like us with the track record that we have of success and what we could possibly offer to different countries and their development in computer technology. So when we came back from there, that's when the major recession of 2008, 2009 happened. All monies were cut. Corporations were operating on the bone structure, so that idea was shelved. And it's just taken some time to get that idea and program back. But to answer the question about legacy, that is the legacy that I would like to see for BDPA, move from where we are today to a global organization addressing technology in all the communities around the world. Because we're open to everyone. Our focus is on people of color, but we're open to any and everyone. Many of our student teams are integrated student teams. So we're open to everybody, but our focus is on people of color.
Now, when any department goes out to the community, we're able to hear the positive responses. And that is a great feeling to know that what we're doing is affecting and impacting the community. In the past, we've heard negative responses about the city being unclean, there's a lot of trash on the ground, or the police, we never see them.
It was important for our residents to feel as though that government was going to be responsive.
People were relying on a 9 to 5 being able to contact about any issues that they had.
We put together a very innovative app that gave our residents access.
IBM assisted the City of Sea Pleasant to incorporate Watson into the My Sea Pleasant app. Any resident who has a question that they want to ask about the city on a 24-hour basis can go into the app and click on Watson to ask it a question.
We had a tree fall, and instead of having to call City Hall, I just went and used the chat and said that there's a tree falling in the middle of the street, and they sent Public Works out to get it for me.
I've used it to report potholes that are in the street. I've used it to see what's going on in the city.
No matter where our Public Works director is, no matter where our employees are, they're able to log in because it is on IBM Cloud and get the service request in real time and respond, in a quick and efficient manner.
It allows them to get to us sooner. On a weekend doesn't matter because it comes through, I'm going to get it. So I love it. I don't see how we ever did without it.